So let's say to manage a company, there's a way to do top-down or to do more emphasis with bottom-up, but we want to combine, and you can call it the middle way. Sometimes certain situation top-down may work, other situation bottom-up can be very powerful. The company who does this well is Toyota, and related to that, I published books. One is more technique, top-down. The other one is shop floor management, more importance placed on shop floor, but also developing a good management system. So everybody practice this mini company idea. And that is applicable not just in the organization, but for each individual. So the idea of like a mini company applies to, in the individual case, mini me. Top down is from the head, bottom up is from the heart and body, something like that. So in actual application of it, I'm just finding those concepts that I put in books are still quite valid, from 1980s and 90s. And the last one, 2002, listening results from the heart. Or you can say, listen to your heart. But the bottom line is that if you have the heart as the core, everything should follow. So ultimately, heart at the center should be the way. And it is functioning as we live, because body functions on its own. But my mind can help accentuate that effort. Or say it differently, if I use the life of tree or life analogy of life as tree. My English is pretty bad. Which is like the source, the core is heart and the root, and it's spread out into different branches. And the branches has to be modifying itself according to the needs. So it's self-organizing everywhere. And the branches are like a mini me or mini company. And in the sense of how we live, we can use again top-down and bottom-up, or the brain-initiated approach versus the heart-initiated approach. And the brain-initiated approach, I'm finding this example. I just show you quickly. That's the flowchart. And it looks complex. It is complex, actually. And that's why I was going through some difficulties when the MacBook Air doesn't function well. To use the old MacBook Air, but it didn't go well because of the storage space and the slowness. So I found iPhone's gonna work. So depending upon the situation, such idea may pop up. So I was using the iPhone, and compared to month and a half ago, it's much better, but still it's complex and confusing. So I decided, okay, I spent time to lay out the flowchart. First is this is next to happen, to transfer to MacBook Air and store it here, and make sure that it's there before go to the next, because MacBook Air can sometimes change the display, gets more confusing. So how to do that is the question. And in that way, to the uploading of the YouTube is done in this flowchart. It's fairly complex. But what was helpful is clarifying the mind in this process, so that the flow is much easier. And as I start to use it, then because of this is a standardized way, I start to realize, oh, there's another way to do it. So I found a better way to store some information in this transferring the memory from iPhone to MacBook Air, and within MacBook Air, you have to move to someplace else. that's such a crazy process just to produce one video. But the flow is important, standardization is important, continuous improvement is important, and the result is much quicker and more reliable process without causing me upset or not so happy about this situation. Theoretically, Apple should have done a better job. That's what I say. But I'm a needs-driven guy. I don't read all the guidance for how to use computer and all that. So unless I have a need, I don't open up any of those. And most of the time, I just figure out by needs-driven approach. So this is a needs-driven approach of using the flowchart. It sounds like too complex for most people, but that's what happens actually in our brain. When things don't work, they try this and that. It's like a flowchart. Try this, try this, try this. It doesn't work. Try this, and it doesn't work until it finds. That's the same situation of AI. Back propagation kind of process of going down, find the resources and develop the passage and have a weight for each of those elements and see how it can grow. So it's the tree analogy of life. This branch, this way, that way, and find the optimum solution. It's like a linear programming to get the highest value from any of those passages that we can create. So that's what I use. That idea, not AI in this case, but in my mind, and also using the flowchart and go through plan, do, check, act to refine it, or Shila Samadhi Panya to go down deeper, or the idea just pops up. In the case of the Samadhi, and in this situation, I was storing on the desktop and finding where in download and whatever, but I realized that the storing photo would make it much simpler also to delete them after I finish this. Because every video I produce, I don't want to clog up the system and all the pictures and videos has to be thrown away. But even to do that takes time, clicking here, clicking there, clicking here, and all that stuff. Otherwise, the whole system gets convoluted. On top of it, because of the iCloud, the information stored here in the MacBook Air briefly may go up to iCloud and come down, but because of the time delay and the synchronization process, it just doesn't work at times. And so it clogs up, there's still lots of memory is stored somewhere, all of a sudden popping up in the computer from 3 days, 4 days ago, and huge amount of memory is occupying the computer. So it's like a brain is all congested and doesn't work. Just like analogy of the brain and heart and how to clean up. So this situation of drawing the flow chart was interesting to relate to what actually happened as in my construct of the mind and body and how to figure out. But having it visual, make things visual if it's important, and develop a way using the brain can facilitate this learning process. So I think it's valid because we have this faculty, use the brain and use the computer, use the flowchart and visualize the process and go through PDCA. So it's the mind-brain function, and we should use it because that helps us to get one notch higher, a better, and less confusing situation. So the world is moving in that direction, and therefore we want each individual want to know basically what is going on in AI and in our mind. But it sounds like too much effort to study. But my view is, in my case, those principal way that I wrote down in the books, and also the approaches of awakening, how to reach out to the heart for wisdom and compassion. Those are something we can learn by going through this process of try and error and try and PDCA and still go through samadhi to come up with idea. So I think it makes sense, except even to listen to this. Maybe nobody's listening by this time, but that's what I do. And that helps me. But one other way is don't bother doing it, but find your own relaxed way of handling the situation. In my case, maybe I'm too curious to solve the problem. So I'm approaching this and coming up with the idea, and I think it's helping me to know how the world functions and how I function and how the AI function and the brain and heart and connection and how we can synchronize like iCloud. But that's the information passing through with the wisdom and making things work. So I just explained, I can write this thing in one book, but actual implementation requires patience, imagination, try and error, PDCA, Shira Samadhi Panya. The issue with me is that when I clear up, there's another mountain to climb. So this is endless, but that's, in a way, my life is like that. And I'm finding interesting to solve the problem. So that's the way I do it. And when I produce video, I just snapshot of this and that. And those are the branches and the leaves, how things are happening if I use the tree analogy of life in my tree. And that helps me because I can see the connection, synthesis, and me at the center, the heart at the center, to relate to each other. So in the past, people can do this much simpler because the tools were limited and the power is much less. So you have more things under control that you can just live in peace because you don't use the computer, videos, and the flowchart, and no tools are available. But the world is moving in that direction. So I'm curious how we are evolving with this situation and what's the implication of life for me and for the society. And I'm not quite sure what the verdict is with this process because the society get all kind of getting messy, or the creation of the new computer like this MacBook Air, and it's trying to be customer friendly, but it's not. And the AI, I see the situation that they have such a stupid thing to do. And knowing those are a little pain, but I think it's necessary. But on the other hand, you can say ignorance is bliss. So that's what I'm going through. You can sympathize me or think crazy, or it's something that we can do and we can learn because we are moving forward with those technological advancements and the information spreading out. And it's just a tsunami of those happening. How to locate yourself, because the society's impact shows up in different symptoms in different parts of the world by the conditioning each nation and habit, the pattern of the people has happened. That's what I see. I'm living in this world, but I'm looking at this world as if from the other dimension. Like me looking at myself, and the world is looking from the other world. So that this mirror image of relationship, observer is observed, oneness, and the creation of new ideas going forward, which way to go. Right or wrong, that's where we are in this point in time of the evolution, if you call evolution, is this way, of how the human species are moving forward. Maybe having said this, things gonna start to sort out on its own, like a Shila Samadhipanya, and that may create another level of insight or wisdom so that we can, or at least I can, move forward and having fun. Yes. Like kids growing up and adults growing up, enlightened, and still going through a further evolution. I remember Osono said, what a waste to live life. I may feel the same when I pass away. I did so much of this and that and opened up an opportunity and go over the mountain to go to the next mountain. And say that, oh, what a waste I had. Or you can say, what an interesting life I had. Just doing the best. A moment of reflection. Thank you.